I will just introduce myself first. Myself, Professor Pandit Gowde. Today I will be covering the presentation on how the banks they are financing different types of agricultural projects. So far as my background is concerned, I work in one of the public sector banks for 35 years and 8 months, and at present I am working as the faculty at one of the MBA colleges in Pune. Now, agriculture finance has become that way buzzword now in our Indian economy. Even the Government of India, Reserve Bank of India and the development bank like NABARD, they are giving more emphasis for financing to different types of agricultural project. Basically, financing to agricultural activities is the directed credit, and also it is supervised credit. In our country, we have a very unique system or network of banks. We have in all 29 public sector banks in our country. In addition to public sector banks, we have private sector banks, cooperative banks and regional rural banks. All these banks, they are financing to agricultural projects. Now, at present, the guidelines which are in vogue, which are issued by Government of India and Reserve Bank of India pertaining to financing to agriculture. Now, these guidelines are 40% of the total credit of the banks, it should go to the priority sector, and amongst this priority sector 18% credit it should go to agriculture sector. Now, these banks, they are financing to various types of agricultural projects. To name few, like say dairy projects, stall-fed rearing of goats, poultry projects, greenhouse cultivation, organic farming, even the value addition project like food processing, fruits and vegetable processing, etc. Almost all activities which are covered in agriculture sector are being financed by these banks in our country. Now, for availing the loans from these banks, the entrepreneurs, especially in agriculture sector, they have to approach these banks very systematically. Now, so far as the papers and documents are concerned, the entrepreneurs should go to the banks with full preparation of different papers and documents. To name these papers and documents, they are your own application, then project report, quotations, plans and estimates, your title deeds of agriculture like your 8A extract, 712 extract, wherever possible this 6D extract, etc. Then the permissions are also required for certain projects like say food processing projects. Permission from say FDA is required. So, whether you approach such type of say agency, it is seen by the bank while considering the project. Such type of certificates are issued on commencement of production. Then the other papers, they are before approaching the bank, one should prepare the guarantors who are to be given for the banks. The detailed information about the guarantors should be obtained. Now, as per the bank's norms, no entrepreneur who is defaulter is financed by these banks. Therefore, it is necessary to obtain the various no-due certificates from the financial institutions from where you are obtaining the finance. Now, this particular paper is not now is required to produce by the entrepreneurs. Now, for that one agency is available. That name of the agency is CIBIL, Credit Information Bureau India Limited. Now, this agency is providing the no dues certificate, or wherever the dues are there in the names of the entrepreneurs, all details are available to the bank from the website of the CIBIL. Then the other papers which are required to be produced in case the entrepreneur is having the existing activity, commercial activity, like say dairy activity or your greenhouse cultivation, etc., commercial activities, and if the entrepreneur needs finance for its expansion or modernization or any sort of diversified activity, then such entrepreneurs are required to produce the financial statements of the existing units. And these financial statements, they are the audited balance sheet, profit and loss account, and in case the entrepreneur is paying income tax, then the IT returns. I know that income tax is not applicable for the agriculture sector, but if the activities are carried out on commercial basis by the entrepreneur, then such type of statements are applicable to the entrepreneurs. Now, once such type of papers and documents are ready, then the entrepreneur can approach the branch manager of nearby bank. He can discuss with his project, he can show his papers and obtain certain guidance from the branch manager. Now, as a formality, the banks generally undertake the pre-sanction visit if the project is say more than say rupees 5 lakh. The branch manager or his assistant, maybe the credit manager or the field officer, they visit your farm and see the feasibility and exact requirement of the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur may discuss his requirements with the help of the project report specially prepared for the selected activity. Now, the project report, which is generally expected by the bank, is divided into 3 parts. First part of the project report is the preliminary information of the entrepreneur. Second part, the entrepreneur should highlight the technical parameters or the parameters which are indicating the technical feasibility of the project. These technical parameters generally they pertain to location, land, building, shade, machinery, equipments, your technical know-how, experience, your training, then availability of raw material, availability of support services like electricity, water, labor, and the last part is marketing of the produce or the product. The third aspect of the project report is the financial feasibility. Entrepreneur should see that the projects are financially viable. Wherever possible, you can also calculate certain indicators like benefit cost ratio, internal rate of return, the debt service coverage ratios, debt equity ratio, etc. Now these indicators, they will show the bank that the project is financially viable. Now when the branch manager is now satisfied with the technical and financial feasibility of the selected project, then he sanctions the loan. Now see how the loans are sanctioned. Now the loan is sanctioned on the basis of exact requirement of the or exact need of the entrepreneur. The other aspects which are taken into account by the sanctioning authority, they are like say your project report, your quotations, plans and estimates, your land record which is submitted to the bank, then the pre-sanction visit, then your say formal informal discussion with the branch manager. All these aspects, they are taken into account while sanctioning the loan. But the basic criteria which is applied by the bank for sanction of the loan is the bankability of the project. Bankability, it means the project must be technically feasible and financially viable. The entrepreneur should note that in project report all these details are given by him to convince the branch manager to sanction the loan and prove the feasibility of the project. Once the branch manager is convinced about the feasibility, then he decides to sanction the loan. Now, as per your requirement or the need of the project, the total amount is sanctioned. But the amount which is disbursed is different. That is because in every project the entrepreneurs are also required to contribute his own share to the extent of 25%. Now this down payment, 25% down payment is applicable generally to the new entrepreneurs who are applying for the first time to the banks. Now the entrepreneurs who are having the banking relations, those who have availed the loans earlier and wherever their record is very good, there on an average 10% down payment is insisted by almost all banks. Now I will give an example. Suppose you have submitted a dairy project of rupees 25 lakhs. There you have, the entrepreneur has to contribute 7,50,000 as a down payment. Now this amount can be invested by him in the project cost items, or he has to then, if not then, he has to bring the cash and deposit in his savings bank account and then spend the bank loan amount and down payment amount simultaneously. Now there are good number of entrepreneurs, those who face a lot of difficulties in getting say down payment amount. Now for that purpose, government has sponsored different types of schemes which are related to this down payment or margin money. Now in order to enable the entrepreneurs, the government has initiated different types of schemes and government is helping the entrepreneurs to contribute this amount. There are few schemes which we can name. For example, seed money scheme, Prime Minister's Employment Generation program, Agri-Clinic, Agribusiness Center scheme, different schemes of National Horticulture Board, margin money scheme, one very good scheme which I can name especially for the entrepreneurs, those who are going for value addition, like say manufacturing projects. The scheme is Credit Linked Capital Subsidy Scheme. It is called as CLCSS. This particular scheme, it belongs to Government of India and being implemented through the development bank called as SIDB, Small Industries Development Bank of India. Now, the other terms and conditions, they are generally pertains to security, rate of interest and repayment of the loan. Now, so far as security is concerned, especially in agricultural loans, when the loan amount exceeds rupees 1 lakh, then the collateral security in the form of two guarantors and mortgage of land is insisted. Now for such type of entrepreneurs wherein their project cost is exceeded rupees 1 lakh, they should prepare for giving two guarantors and additional security in the form of mortgage of loan. Now, in this particular case, it is likely that the entrepreneurs may not have the land in their names. The land may be in the names of their parents. Now, these lands are also accepted by the banks for collateral security as the collateral security by making the parents as co-borrower or the guarantor to the documents. Now, in case of the manufacturing projects in agriculture sector, like say food processing, which can be classified even under micro, small and medium enterprises. Entrepreneurs, the Government of India has launched a very good scheme through one of the subsidies, and that's the name of the subsidy is Credit Guarantee Fund Trust for micro and small enterprises. Now, this is not applicable for general agriculture, but the entrepreneurs, those who are going for say milk processing, food processing or any value addition project, especially in agriculture sector, this scheme is also well applicable to such type of entrepreneurs, wherein the cover from the CGFT MAC is available to the extent of for the project up to rupees 1 crore, and the entrepreneurs are required to bear the premium to the extent of on an average 1.5% upfront at the time of sanction of loan, and subsequently from second year onwards they are required to bear 0.75% service charges which are payable to CGFT MAC. Now, for banks also this particular scheme is very beneficial, that is because in case if the loans are defaulted by the entrepreneurs, then banks are eligible to get reimbursement to the extent of 75% of outstanding overdues. So far as rate of interest is concerned, now the banks are charging rate of interest based upon the reference rate given by the Reserve Bank of India. Now, before 1991, in our Indian economy, our country has adopted the LPG policy, that is liberalization, globalization and privatization. So, before 1991 all the interest rates, especially on agriculture projects or even other business loans, they were decided by the controller or the regulator bank, that is Reserve Bank of India. But after 1991 this particular autonomy is given by Reserve Bank of India to all the banks. Now at present the banks are deciding the rate of interest not only on the loans but also on the deposits too. Now in the year 1991 the first reference rate which was given by Reserve Bank of India to all the bank to decide the effective rate of interest, it was benchmark prime lending rate. Now this benchmark prime lending rate is the average rate of interest which is generally not much costlier to the agriculturists or the entrepreneurs, and it is also not much beneficial to the banks. Now this benchmark prime lending rate is disclosed to the public even at present. Now it is in between 1150 to 1250% per annum. Now this benchmark prime lending rate, it was continued up to 1st July 2010. The present reference rate which is introduced by Reserve Bank of India to all the banks to decide the effective rate of interest is the base rate. Now at present the reference rate which is introduced by Reserve Bank of India to all the bank is called as base rate. Now this base rate is the minimum rate below which the banks are not allowed to charge the interest. Now this base rate is also disclosed to the public. Now at present this base rate is in between 950 to 1050% per annum. Now the other factors which are taken into account by deciding the effective rate of interest by the banks, they are in our country the guidelines given by Government of India and Reserve Bank of India to all the banks. Now both Government of India and Reserve Bank of India, they have advised the banks to charge reasonable rate of interest for the agriculture sector. Now therefore the rate which is charged by the banks to the agricultural entrepreneurs, it is reasonable and it is in between say 10% to 12.50% per annum. Now in case the loans are defaulted by the agriculturist, then the penal interest in between 1 to 2.5% is applied, and the compounding rate of interest is applied on the overdue amount. Now in case the accounts or the amounts are not repaid by the entrepreneurs due to some such reasons which are beyond the control of the agriculturists or the entrepreneurs, then they should intimate the banks the correct reason. Now in such type of cases, the banks generally give the helping hand to the agriculturists or the entrepreneurs. In such type of say accounts, the banks, they give the facilities like repayment of loan, reschedulement of loan, and in exceptional cases even the banks resort to nurse such type of accounts. Generally the rate of interest which are applied by the banks to the loan accounts, the method is applied by two methods. One is floating method and second one is the fixed method. Generally, the uh, generally the option is given by the banks to decide the particular method, but in case the agriculturists or the entrepreneurs do not decide the option, then by default floating floating rate is adopted by almost all banks. Now, so far as disbursement of loan is concerned, the loan amounts are disbursed as per the stages and the requirement. While disbursing the subsequent say installment, generally the bankers they ensure that earlier amount which is sanctioned and disbursed is utilized by the entrepreneur appropriately, and end utilization is correct. As far as possible, the disbursement is made in kind and not in cash. Say for example, any equipment or the assets like say animals, tractors, etc. are to be purchased. Now, in such type of cases, third party demand drafts are done, or the payments are directly made to the dealers and is not made in cash. Now, once the total amount is disbursed, again it is ensured that by the banks that the loan amount is utilized for the purpose given. Now, the last term which is given in the sanction letter, it pertains to the repayment of loan. Now, the repayment of loan, especially in case of agricultural projects, they depend upon the surplus amount which are amounts which are anticipated by the entrepreneurs in their cash flow. But the general repayment program which is given by the banks for the agriculture projects, it is in between 3 years to 7 years. For most of the projects, the common repayment program is given by the banks to the entrepreneurs or the agriculturist is of 60 months or 5 years. Now, in addition to this repayment program, whatever say period is required for the entrepreneurs to complete the project, such type of period is called as gestation period or moratorium period or holiday period. Now, such gestation period is given in between say 6 months to even up to say 15 months, 18 months, etc. And that is extra. That is it is in addition to the repayment program say 60 months. Say for example, in case of dairy project, the total repayment program which is given is 60 months, and if the gestation period is given say for example is say 8 months, then the total repayment program will be 68 months. Now, whatever interest is applied during the gestation period or the moratorium period, that is not demanded by the bank. Such type of accrued interest is being added in the principal, and accrued interest is capitalized in the principal amount, and then the total amount is required to be repaid by the entrepreneurs within 60 months with either monthly installment plus whatever interest is applied per month. There are few suggestions for the agriculture entrepreneurs for approaching the banks for availing the loan. Now, the entrepreneurs or the agriculturists, they should ensure that the projects which are selected by them, they are technically feasible and financially viable. While approaching to the banks, they should approach or visit the branches along with all relevant papers which we have already discussed, and convince the branch manager that the selected project is bankable, that is technically feasible and financially viable. Now, during the course of negotiation, the branch manager may ask certain questions about the projects. These questions may be related to the technical feasibility or the commercialness of the project or financial viability of the project. The questions may be very simple, therefore, the entrepreneur should be able to reply these questions to the branch manager, so that the process of sanction of loans, it becomes very easier and simple. Now, there are few instances wherein the banks, they decline to sanction the loans. Now, the various reasons for rejecting such type of applications, they are generally pertains to the bankability of the projects. Most of the projects, either they are not technically feasible or they are not financially viable. In case of many projects which are linked to the various schemes of the government, generally such type of projects, they are made to the bank just for availing the subsidy from the government. The entrepreneurs do not get prepared for the projects. They do not have the complete knowledge, technical knowledge about the projects. So, in such type of cases also, the banks, they decline the projects. If there is any situation before the entrepreneur or the agriculturists, say for example, two banks are responding to you for your agricultural projects, and now the question is which bank is to be selected. Now, in such type of circumstances or the eventualities, different parameters like rate of interest of the bank, the different charges which are charged by the banks, like say documentation charges, inspection charges, supervision charges or other charges, etc., they should be taken into account. The base rate of individual bank should be taken into account, and the most important factor while selecting the bank is the service which is rendered by the bank to the customer. Now, in case any bank has rejected your proposal, kindly do not get disappointed. You may approach the other bank along with the same papers. It is likely that these banks, they may evince interest in sanctioning the loan application. In case any proposal is rejected by one of the banks, now in such type of cases, the entrepreneur should not get disappointed. They may approach the other bank with the same papers and convince the bankability or the feasibility of the project to the bank. This bank may evince interest in sanctioning of the loan. Now, for subsidy is concerned, there are two types of subsidies are there, which are generally given by Government of India or the state government. Now, the subsidies which are provided by Government of India, these subsidies are back-ended, and the subsidies which are provided by state government, they are front ended. Now, in case of back ended subsidy, the subsidy amounts are disbursed by Government of India after certain lock-in period. Uh, Now the lock-in period may be for 2 years, 3 years, etc. Now in case of subsidies granted by state government, these subsidies are front-ended and generally these subsidies are disbursed by state government along with the loan amount. Now in case of these subsidies which are released by Government of India, as they are back ended, these subsidies are released by Government of India after disbursement of loan, and then the subsidy claims are required to be made by the bank to the concerned agency, maybe like say NABARD, National Horticulture Board, or any other agency which is appointed by Government of India for releasing the subsidy. Now, so far as security aspect is concerned, many entrepreneurs or the agriculturists, they face lot of difficulties. Now, general security which is expected by the banks for releasing the loan, when the loan amount exceeds rupees 1 lakh, it is in the form of 2 guarantors and mortgage of the immovable property. It is likely that the entrepreneurs, they may not have the immovable property in their names. The immovable property like say landed property may be in the name of their parents. Now these properties are also accepted as the collateral security by the banks by way of third party mortgage. Now such type of securities are offered by the banks by making the parents as the co-borrower or guarantors to the loan accounts. The banks sanction the loans various type. The bank generally sanction various types of loans, but for starting the project generally the term loans are given to the entrepreneurs, but the entrepreneurs or the agriculturists should also insist upon for sanction of the cash credit for their projects. Now for sanctioning the cash credits, similar same documents are required by the entrepreneurs to be produced to the banks, and the basis for sanctioning of the cash credits to the entrepreneur is the turnover of the account, or in case of say new entrepreneurs, whatever turnover is anticipated, projected for the next year. Generally for the new entrepreneurs, whatever turnover is anticipated or projected, of that 20% of the anticipated or projected turnover, that amount is sanctioned as the working capital for the project. Now in case of existing entrepreneurs, those who need enhancement in their CC limits, now in such type of cases, the turnover of last 2 years is taken into account, and whatever is anticipated for the next year, of that 20% becomes the eligibility for cash credit amount. This agribusiness sector carries a lot of interest in our Indian economy. That is because 60% of the people, they are dependent on agriculture sector. Agriculture sector is having a lot of capacity for employment generation, even for earning foreign exchange. Many good number of industries, they are also dependent on agriculture sector. Therefore, Government of India is giving due importance for this particular sector and insisting the banks to sanction the loan to agriculturists and entrepreneurs. Now, so far as our country is concerned, generally 4 types of banks, they are sanctioning loans to the agriculturists or the entrepreneurs in agriculture sector. They are public sector banks. In all, 29 public sector banks are there. 80% of the borrowers, they are borrowing the loans from these public sector banks. Then the second category of the bank is private sector banks. Now these banks like ICICI Bank, Axis Bank, IDBI Bank, SDFC Bank, etc., they are also sanctioning the loans to the banks. Now the cooperative banks, especially the district central cooperative banks and other cooperative banks, they are also sanctioning the loans to the agriculturists. Now wherever the cooperative banks, they are financially weak, wherever their branch network is limited, there these public sector banks have sponsored their own banks, and these banks are called as regional rural banks. Now these are the 4 types of banks which are sanctioning the loans to agriculturists and agriculture entrepreneurs in our country. Now in addition to these banks, there are even other banks are also there which are playing an important role, especially in policy formation or for implementing different types of schemes for the benefit of the farmers. For example, the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, generally called as NABARD, plays a very significant role, especially in policy formation, in credit disbursement to the agriculturist. Now in case of the food processing units in agriculture sector, generally covered under the sector called as micro, small and medium enterprises. Now the concerned development bank should be Small Industrial Development Bank of India. It is likely that many agricultural entrepreneurs and the concerned bank is Export Import Bank. So all these banks, they are called as development bank, and they are also playing a very important role, development role, especially in extending the agriculture credit to the agriculturists and the agricultural entrepreneurs. The Government of India has given a due emphasis for extending agriculture credit, especially to the agricultural entrepreneurs, by launching different types of schemes. Government of India is giving due emphasis for extending agricultural credit to the agriculturists and the agricultural entrepreneurs. Many agriculturists or the entrepreneurs, they believe that the banks, they are not sanctioning the loans to the agriculturists and entrepreneurs. It is believed by the agriculturists and the entrepreneurs that the banks are not sanctioning loans to them. Please remember that this is not the case. Now these banks, they are also in search of good agriculturists or the borrowers who can repay the loan. Now in case we approach the banks very systematically along with the project, with the convincing reasons, along with all documents and papers, then if we reply the questions which are raised by the banks by sanctioning the loan with their satisfaction, then the possibility of sanctioning the loans is much high. Please remember that these banks, they are also in search of good borrowers. That is because they also want to perform the business of banking. One concept in the bank is always emphasized to the agriculturist and entrepreneurs. That particular concept is called as development through credit. Please ensure that the credit extended by the banks for different types of agriculture projects is instrumental for development of your lives. Please remember that the agriculturists or the entrepreneurs in agriculture sector can develop their activities through credit. The particular concept is called as development through credit. Credit is very much instrumental for development of your lives and business